me right through. You're holding your secrets for way too long. This can't keep going on. With every lie, they keep on hurting you, getting away with everything they do. This can't keep going on. No, we're gonna find them, and I'm gonna fight for you. They better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions.
Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday. I'm Dr. Kalpana Sundar, the host of Gloves Off, and I'm so happy to see you guys here. I cannot believe that it is already the end of April already. I don't even know where the year has gone, but I feel like each year goes by faster and faster. They do say that it happens as you get older, but I didn't believe it till it started to happen to me. So for those of you who are new, I want to welcome you to the show. And basically the show is called Gloves Off because each week I have a guest on, and a lot of these guests are doing something different, showing up authentically in the world, living their life's purpose, not staying stuck in the confines of what society tells them to do. And really, that's a courageous act. So I like to showcase these people. I also like to showcase the fact that there's so much positivity in the world, unlike what is shown on the media on a regular basis. And that's the reason that I do the show. So if you like the content, tune in every week, and please like, share, and comment. And I'm happy to hear your comments. And then, of course, for those of you who have been watching, welcome back. So today I actually have a guest of mine, Dr. Sean Hubbard. What I love is that we actually had met in medical school. So not to age us, but it's been a little while. And so he and I have gone through some similar journeys in our medical career. So it's going to be fun to deep dive into this conversation with him. But before I get into that, and before we bring Dr. Sean on, I just want to really honor my platinum sponsor, and that is Elevated CPA, Doug Benefield. So I had him on a couple of weeks ago, and for those of you who are thinking about starting a business, a side hustle, any of those things, that's the time where you should maybe think about having an accountant if you're doing your taxes yourself. So anyway, certainly consider reaching out, and I'll be back once our little commercial's over. All right, so we're going to get started. I'm going to bring Dr. Sean on. Hello, how are you today?
Dr. Kopna, wonderful to see you.
Yes, so great to have you on the show. I've been wanting to do this episode for so long. You're one of my, obviously a friend for a very long time. And I just love the fact that what's actually funny that I want to share with the audience is that you and I were in medical school together, but we knew each other. I would say that our friendship really developed more recently in the last few years.
That's right.
Which is
That's right.
So I just remember that when I met you, I just thought you were really quiet. And, I think we had our own groups of friends, and you just kept kind of stuck in your own little routine. And much more recent, like I became an ENT surgeon, you became a neurologist. So I think we lost touch. And then Facebook, I think, is probably what reconnected us. I saw that you were doing stuff that was very similar to what I was interested in. So somehow we reconnected.
Absolutely. It is interesting how that happened. And that's exactly how I remember it also. We had different friend groups.
Mhm.
And then Facebook happened. And then I saw you doing some different things, coming at lifestyle from a different angle, helping patients, helping people in a more sort of broader way. And I was like, man, I love it. I love what she's doing. I feel it and I get it.
Yeah, well, because we're so similar in that way. So tell us a little bit about why did you choose neurology as your profession?
Well, it was so natural for me. Sometimes I'm still amazed that I actually get paid to do this work because it's so perfect for my personality. I'm always very observant, even way before I came into neurology. I would notice if somebody like a baby or even a grown person, which foot they started going up the steps on. I noticed it myself. It was just always something I was noticing who's right handed, who's left handed, people's tendencies and personality, also just patterns of movement, patterns of thought, patterns of talking, how people say what they say. It always intrigued me. And so it would be psychology and the most psychological aspect of medicine that involves medicine, I would say, is neurology. So it was a very natural fit for me. That's why I chose it. It's such a natural fit.
I really didn't even know that about you. So that's what I love about doing these episodes because even though I know somebody and I know things about them, I always discover something new. So that's really interesting that I never notice things like that. But I
Yeah,
do
yeah, I
notice
know.
when people are breathing funny and that they can't or they sound nasally or they have other things going on. I notice those things.
Oh, sure. Oh,
So
yeah. Somebody gets a haircut. Somebody gets, there's a new perfume. My wife has new perfume. I'm like, you have a new lotion or something like that? She's like, oh, yes. If anybody has anything new, I notice it.
you're
New
very
bangs. Yeah. Yeah.
That's well, that's an important characteristic in any physician or any human being, frankly, but clearly you're more observant than most people. So you use this to your advantage with your skill set in medicine, which is wonderful.
And now I'm trained and practiced.
Yeah.
So kind of gets on steroids a little bit.
You said you had a family member that kind of precipitated also this journey into neurology for you. So, in addition to the things that you've noticed that you were just good at, naturally good at, there were other things that precipitated you following your path into neurology, right?
Definitely. And that was my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, and he would be, let's say, the one that taught me how to shoot a gun at a young age. I mean, nobody else would let me shoot a gun or hold a gun or anything like that. But when it was January 1st, he was the one who allowed me to do that, or the 4th of July or something like that. And he developed a stroke and had a right side weakness, had aphasia, and it was multiple strokes actually, couldn't express himself. And he had a lot of lifestyle risk factors that made stroke more likely. And of course, I didn't understand any of that at the time. I know that his doctors were saying, oh, we should try to get grandpa to stop smoking. And I know he was still smoking. I remember my grandmother sort of, waving her finger at him. And so it was really my first experience with people that had acute and serious neurological conditions. And it intrigued me. And there was a big part of me that thought, wow, these bad things are happening to good people. And I want to see what I can do to get in the way of it. So it
Mhm. Well, and then over the years, you've done different things with your career path, and I feel like that was what probably brought us together again because on Facebook I was noticing that you were doing your own show and you were really interested in motivating people to live better lives, to show them that they have choices. And you really brought that coaching aspect into that patient doctor relationship. And it was around the same time where I was shifting careers and shifting kind of out of medicine because for me, I was just done. And I just knew that for me, there was something different that I wanted to do. I enjoyed the business aspect of it. I enjoyed the coaching aspect of it. I enjoyed a lot of things, but not seeing patients anymore. It was just time for me to get done. So describe what that transition was like for you or how it happened and what got you interested.
That's funny you ask, and I appreciate what you're saying too. Also, the dilemma and just the idea that we want to have a certain impact on our people that we want to help, and we feel restricted by what we're expected to do, with our particular roles. I
Mhm.
would say the dilemma started, believe it or not, Dr. Kalpana, in our going into about our third, fourth year and deep into clinicals.
Wow, that
And
early. Hmm.
isn't that something?
Yeah.
And so my dad, a professional coach, and coached football at Florida A&M for years. He coached under Woody Hayes at Ohio State. And so I grew up in the coaching, let's say, culture, if you will.
Mhm.
A lot of my one-liners that are just in my head, and a lot of my fundamentals and my, sort of how I see the world really comes from that. And it really comes from my dad and just from my family, but especially my dad. So anyway, he used to listen to these books on tape. Wayne Dyer, believe it or not, I was listening to that as a young kid on long trips going from Florida to Ohio to visit my grandparents. And so later on, now we're in medical school, I bought a self-help book. It was actually The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck.
Okay.
During clinicals, I'm going from, how a bunch of us went to New Jersey.
Mhm.
Well, I'm going back to New Jersey. There was some crazy snowstorm. I had this book, The Road Less Traveled. I got stuck in the snowstorm in Cincinnati and I couldn't go any further. My car just wouldn't make it. I don't know if you recall, I had a Jeep, it was Suzuki Samurai at the time. It just wasn't built for like a blizzard. Anyway, I got stuck in Kentucky in this blizzard, and then I thought, oh, I'm just going to pull over in this hotel and read this book. So I started reading The Road Less Traveled, and I read it like for the rest of the day and into the night, and I was just hooked. And so I woke up the next morning. I thought, okay, I have to get out of here. The car didn't start, and I went and got some breakfast. I continued reading the book. I finished the book that day, and it became clear I wasn't going to be able to take that car any further. And so, but I finished the book, and by the time I finished the book, I felt so light, and I felt like, you know, I'm not a bad person. I felt like I had more choices. I just could see the road fully ahead of me. And do you know that I rented a car and left my Jeep there in Kentucky?
Wow. But that
I,
is so major. And I think that's where there was such a our paths differed in that moment, really. So
uh-huh.
you went one way, I went another. I didn't feel like I had a choice for many reasons, which I talk about in my book, that I didn't feel I had a choice. And that took me down one path. And then all of a sudden I realized I had a choice. And then I started going down a completely different path. So
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, right? It's
What about the
amazing.
book in particular showed you, like, was there a specific, like something in the book specifically, or just really the whole gist of the book that you just said, wow, I have choices. I could do things differently.
I'm going to tell you specifically what it was. And so I went to Catholic school growing up, and my both parents were raised in the church.
Mhm.
And so they were raised in a way that they decided that they were not going to kind of put me through it. They were like, you're just going to make your own choices. I mean, figure it out yourself. We don't want to do to you what was done to us. Figure it out yourself. So I did. So I had some freedom, but people would ask me, oh, you're such a nice young man. Where do you go to church? And I would be like, I don't really go to church. I mean, it became a very difficult way to answer the question, but I think I was feeling sort of guilty. Well, the book itself is about spiritual growth. and mental health. And what I came to realize by the time I finished the book is I was growing spiritually from my experiences. And that is, I mean, I think I felt a little guilty before that. And I think I felt like, oh man, maybe there was a part of me that felt like I was going to be punished, for not going to church.
Oh,
I
it's
mean, this
a
is gloves off, right? This
yeah.
is
This is gloves off.
mask off,
Say whatever you want.
you know. And so,
We know now
if
that
one
Dr.
day,
Tom doesn't go to church. It's all out there. The secret is out.
Dr. Kopna, if one day I think I'm going to hell, and then I read a book, and then I realize that, wow, maybe I ain't so bad.
I hear you. I had a similar journey with all of that. I mean, my
Yeah,
parents raised me to be very, my parents were very strict, Indian parents, and there was really, again, this is why I thought I had no choice. And I understand that they did what they did because they thought it was the right thing, but in those moments, I just didn't feel like I had a choice. So I grew up feeling very heavy, and that heaviness led to a lot of rebellion and some really not so great choices at times. Now it's funny because I have a choice and I feel that I am the creator of my own life and the sovereign creator of my own life. It has changed my perspective so much.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So
That's
that was really impactful for me. And I should say that book was written by a physician.
I haven't read the book, so now I need to read it.
So now I have a book that had that impact on me, written by a physician. I'm getting ready to graduate. And I thought, you know what? That's the kind of doctor I want to be. I want to have that kind of impact on my patients.
Mhm.
But, back to the concern you had, I had the same concern. Well, once I graduated, what we're practicing is not that, um, it's completely different. So we had this coaching aspect, self-help aspect. And then at that time we had, okay, here's your Plavix, here's your aspirin, here's your statin, here's your ACE, this is your carotid. You know what I mean? It was
Right.
everything else, you see. So that was the dilemma.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, for me, when I first started, it wasn't as bad. It got worse as the years went by, right? For me. I mean, I've
Mhm.
noticed that with the insurance companies changing, in the beginning, I felt like I had the ability to spend more quality time with the patients. But as
Yeah.
the years in practice went by, I felt like it was less and less. And I was in private practice. I actually don't know if you were,
Yeah.
so
I
it,
was.
it got to be harder because you got to look at the business aspect of it. You have to make a profit or you can't pay your staff. You can't you need the profit. And so people think, oh, that's terrible. Well, I need to keep the lights on. I need to buy the equipment. I need to do all these things. So it became like this very difficult cycle of, wow, I got to see patients faster, but I'm not enjoying things anymore. But the insurances are paying you less. And as a solo practitioner, I couldn't negotiate those better rates that the hospital doctors could. So then,
Exactly.
and in that moment, I had made up my mind that one day I might not be able to practice in private practice anymore. And for me, I knew I was going to be done then. I knew that a long time ago because I needed to work for myself. Because at the end of the day, one thing I didn't realize was that I'm really an entrepreneur. And I didn't know that. But because of that, I would make a terrible employee at a hospital. So I was like, well, I knew that one day when that time came, I was just going to probably just do something else. So,
Yeah.
and how was your transition? Because now you work with the hospitals and stuff now. So was that transition difficult for you?
I would say it has not been difficult for me. I made some adjustments in my head. I would turn on the TV and I would see, let's say, a professional ball player that plays for the NFL or the NBA or something like that. And I'm like, okay, so they're an employee, but they're also being entrepreneurial. Um, you could say they're even partnering with the NBA or partnering with the NFL. And so basically, I have maintained my entrepreneurial spirit in my places of work. And it has tended to work because whenever we need new ideas, marketing ideas, innovative ideas, technological ideas, for the most part, in my department, I'm spearheading
That's amazing. Well, it also sounds like you were in a place where that was valued.
it. Well, it was. I mean, I'm sort of a maverick. Um, and that's just me. I mean, I decided that also I'm going to be extraordinary at doing what I'm doing. And even at one turn of the road, I decided I'm committed to this. I'm going to wear a scarf to work. You know what I mean? I'm going to look like somebody who's doing something different. And I did it all the time. So pretty soon, people didn't like wonder what I was doing because I was always doing something different. And it was usually going to be, I mean, my performance was high, you see, so my door to needle times would be high. um, I connected with people more, workers more, like nursing, patients. I connect with patients really well. So my scores are high. And see, now I teach that stuff. You see, so my patient experience. So, I've basically been kind of pushing the boundaries of what medicine, what healthcare, what we can do.
Hmm.
Um, and so it does get appreciated. Sometimes what would happen is that, let's say, I have to be a little technical, but when we treat somebody with stroke, there's an idea that, not just an idea, but the faster we treat, the more efficiently, the more effectively we treat. I mean, we're supposed to be treating within an hour, right?
Right.
And so my doors and needle times were frequently in the teens. And so what would happen is my times get factored in and averaged with everybody else's, and then the hospital looks pretty good. You see,
Mhm.
um, I mean, I don't get like a pat on the back. I'm not getting anything. Even when the American Heart Association comes to take pictures, I'm not there. It's the directors and all that stuff. So they appreciate it, but
Right, right. Well, it's so true. I think there definitely is a way to keep the entrepreneurial spirit alive and in full force within, an institution. But I really do feel that honestly, the institution has to be receptive. And I have to say, where I was working, it wasn't. So I felt like I was just butting heads with people, and they wanted to keep it the old way. And I think that's where things got difficult for me. So then I had almost like two parts of my life: my practice, where I was fully in control of having things run efficiently, effectively. I loved building teams and people who worked well together. And then I would go to the hospital, and that wasn't the case. So that contrast was very difficult for me for whatever reason, because one place I had lots of control over the situation to create again and have a choice as to what I wanted to be within and what kind of system I wanted to be within. And then on the other end, I couldn't. So I think it just got harder and harder for me. And slowly I started backing out of the hospital as little by little, how to do more procedures in the office, do more procedures in the ambulatory surgery center, which was efficient and effective, where my voice was heard. And I think, the one common thread I can say in my life, when my voice isn't, when I can't either speak my truth or when I'm not listened to, this is a real problem for me. So I think that probably contributed to me just wanting to exit. And I didn't feel like starting a practice again elsewhere. That was that was going to be too hard.
yeah, I agree with that.
So
And
it's
that's one
interesting.
thing I'm not doing either.
Oh yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
gets too difficult at a certain point. And then
yeah.
you and I have so many similarities. Well, first of all, we have to just stop and talk about the fact that your wife has the same name as me. So let's talk about the other Kalpana for a minute.
That's too funny. That
I
is too
remember
funny. Yeah.
the first
Yeah,
time I
that
saw that on Facebook, I was like, wait, is he talking about me? What's going on? I was so confused. And I looked further and I was like, oh, that's hilarious.
isn't it? It is. You know what the other hilarious thing is about that? Is that when I first met her, my wife, and I saw her name, I thought I knew how to pronounce it. because I have been mispronouncing your name for a long time, you know.
Yes.
And then somebody was like, wait a minute, if you like her, you're going to have to learn how to say her name correctly, you know. And so,
That's so funny because, well, that's my fault. So I take complete ownership of that because when I grew up in New York City, nobody could say my name. And then I was in New Jersey, then I came to Florida. And actually, after doing this show, I've had a couple of my friends from high school approach me and say, we've been saying your name. A couple of people have been like, we've been saying your name wrong the whole time. I go, it's my fault. I never told you guys. But once I moved to California, I've actually started to introduce myself as Kalpana because it is my name. And honestly, even my ex husband, I told him to say my name wrong. So you can't change those things somewhere in the middle. So it's really hard. So it's not anybody's fault. But I
yeah,
love that you say my name perfectly now because you have to learn it for your wife.
exactly. And can you imagine the thing going off in my head when somebody said, "Oh no, it was a young lady. She was from South India. She was like, you have to say it right. It's Kapna, And I was like, oh wow, I have been. Oh my God, I can't even think. Like I've been saying it so incorrectly. But anyway, yeah, that is nice, and yeah, she's lovely.
Yes,
She's
yes.
lovely.
And so I just think that was the icing on the cake. I was like, "Oh God, now we really have to reconnect because we've got so many things in common and your wife and I have the same name, so that's awesome."
Yeah,
So
no, it was cool to introduce you guys too. That was really
yes,
cool.
yes. No, it was. Unfortunately, we don't live close by anymore, darn it, but one
Oh,
day we'll definitely have to all meet up. So now let's talk about your show a little bit. I mean, that was when I started to see when I saw your Facebook post about your show. It was something at that point I didn't have anything going on at the time, but I was like, wow, who knew that Sean and I had this in common because this is not common in medicine. It wasn't common amongst our colleagues. I feel like even most of my friends in med school, they have really stuck with the traditional path of just doing medicine in the traditional ways and not branched out too much. So you and I have just connected on that, and that's what got us to become friends again, or reconnect and start talking about these things. So tell us how
exactly.
all that progressed.
Yes. So the name of the show was The Winner's Circle, and I haven't been doing it as frequently, but I'm starting up again, and I'm focusing on physicians, especially focusing on the physician's experience. And so you'll be getting a call soon.
I was just about to
And
say, like, I haven't been on this show. I don't know why, but whatever.
yeah, no, no. I was a little, like anything else, you start doing something and then you don't know exactly why, you don't have the real focus, the real narrow sort of laser focus. But now I do. So
Thanks.
but
And
yeah,
keep
so what
going.
started it basically was you know, I think down through the years I would have conversations with people and I'm talking about patients. And so I said people because I always want to remind myself that we're talking about people. Sometimes we have a tendency when we say patients to dehumanize, and um, and that's where it all got started. We might say, oh, I have this diabetic, or this hypertensive, or this alcoholic, or this or that. And it's one thing that we have this in our mind, in our society, but when a person sees themselves as an addict or an alcoholic, I started to wonder, how much of them seeing themselves as an addict keeps them doing what they are doing, you see.
Yeah, we've applied a label, and that's really harmful to their psyche. And I don't think a lot of physicians think about that.
That's what happened, really, and so now I started to think, well, there's a part of us, everybody who's done something well, everybody has some talent, everybody has had some victory. And if we focus on those areas and grow those areas and focus on the victory aspect of us, the parts of us that are winners, well, then we will get where we want to go. And so that's where the whole idea of the winner circle came in. I wanted to feature people that were doing things different, and that have different insights and that have different way of sharing their insights. And so that's the winner circle.
I love
Yeah.
that. And you bring up such an important point because I even remember during our medical school training that we were already starting to dehumanize our patients.
Yeah,
And nobody stopped us, nobody said anything about it. There's
exactly.
There's a part of me that wonders if it was because we had to. I know sometimes I did it to protect myself from the emotions that I was feeling, because truly, I don't think we were properly trained on how to deal with loss, death, grief. These are valid emotions that we are dealing with as young people. We're in our 20s. And, we really weren't taught these things. And I remember going through clinicals and in like geriatrics or something, and some of the people were saying words that I didn't really like to hear about patients, and I just removed myself from the conversation. I didn't know why it was bothering me. I don't know that I had the bandwidth to really understand it at that point.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
yeah, it's just a really important thing, and I love that you say people instead of just patients, and I think honestly we all should do that.
Yeah, it was a real, it continues to be a turning point. I, you know, I have to remind myself all the time, even when I'm talking about people that experience stroke, we might say, oh man, I saw, man, we had four strokes last night. No, four people with strokes last night. You know what I mean? I have to remind myself that we're talking about people, and it seems um, might seem weird to people that are listening and watching that we have to remind ourselves, but this kind of shorthand way of, like you say, protecting ourselves and trying to be efficient. It kind of takes out the emotions of what we're doing. But here's the other interesting aspect about this is that we are burned out a lot because we feel like numbers ourselves,
Sure.
Um, and so, it could be that really taking our gloves off, and our masks off, and really digging deeper and taking a step back a little slower and looking at who humanity really is and what it is we need. Maybe that is part of the answer. So that's kind of what's been driving me here lately.
No, I think that's beautiful because again, I don't feel like we're equipped to understand all of these things. And, I remember the first time that I saw a patient, die, and it was like, on to the next. And I was like, but somebody just died. And I don't know how I really feel about this. Like, I don't know this person. I understand that very well. It was like, I think the first time was I was on call. So it wasn't that I had gotten to know that patient. It was something that happened suddenly. And I remember how traumatic it was because it was in the ER. We had to crack a chest, and next thing you know, that patient died. And I remember just brushing it off like it was no big deal. And they are big deals.
Yeah.
So we are humans, and we have to realize that, like you're saying, that we have to take our gloves off, own and appreciate our own vulnerability, our own emotions in that circumstance, because only then can we give back to our people who are
Yeah.
suffering from different diseases and maladies.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so
Yeah.
that's what the winner circle is about, and everything that I'm working on these days, and I've been noticing during your shows. I watch your show, the men and the women, and you probably see me commenting and throwing emojis out there and stuff like that. But you're dealing with these sensitive areas that we sometimes don't want to really deal with, but man, it's hard to grow without them. It's hard to discover the power we have without really digging deep. So
It's so true because a lot of why I do the show, I mean, there's so many reasons I do the show, but one of the other things is that right now there's a lot of misunderstandings, I feel, globally. And we have men and women who don't understand each other, who get mad at each other. Then we have different races, different cultures who don't understand each other. And my goal is to bring all that together. And, I am going to be having more international guests as time goes on. I have a few more that are booked and I want to introduce different viewpoints because at the end of the day, I think my life got more pleasant when I stopped being so damn rigid. I was raised in rigidity that these people are good. The people who look like this are good people. The people who do these things or look like that are bad people. This is how I grew up. And frankly, I don't believe in any of that crap. We can all have differing opinions. I believe that we can come to a place of understanding with different opinions and still like and respect each other. The things that are non negotiables for me are people who are rude, don't bother to try to understand. Those are things that I cannot deal with. But if somebody has an opinion that's different from mine, I really am okay with it. I welcome it. I seek to understand because often I learn something from that interaction. So we should lead with curiosity and try to come from a place of understanding rather than I feel like sometimes we're just go into opposition mode a lot of times. Not everybody, of course, but I'm just saying I see these things happen. And some of this is what I want to see change. And if this show can make some parts of that change happen, then I'm happy.
Well, that's a great place to start because that is what I've found a lot of places where we get stuck. And we get stuck on those things that really tick us off,
Mhm.
and then we spend so much energy talking about those things that we don't even think so much about what we want.
Exactly. Exactly. We
Yeah.
lose sight of the important things.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So even just something so like just turning things around for you, like with the winner circle. Now people are entering into that space feeling like a winner. And that
Yes.
changes their perception. Just even changing something as small as not labeling our patients. I mean, we talk about not labeling our children and all those things. Like, I actually, frankly, never thought about it till just now. So,
Mm, mm. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful that you've brought that to light because I think other physicians can really benefit from thinking about it that way. Because for me, the minute I heard you say that, there was a shift, not only from hearing it, but an internal shift that went on within me of
Mm.
how we show up for those people.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I
Yes.
really felt it when you said that. So I had to really
Oh,
go back to that point again because it was really important.
oh, sure, sure. I get it. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I
Yeah.
can see, you're very personable. You always have been. I have
Mhm.
never gotten the sense that you don't care. That is a big complaint now amongst, patients, people that we treat, that doctors don't care. Doctors don't care. I hear that all the time. And I think that we have to safeguard our own humanity, our own authenticity, our truth, and our emotions. I think that's when we do those things, we can show up properly for our patients and the people that we are there to serve. If we look at it like we're in an act of service, we also look at it differently. I look at my whole life now that everything is an act of service, not something that I have to do.
That's a huge leap, what you're saying right there. And there are many of us that are doing this line of work that fight against the idea that we are in the service industry. And so that you said it so casually and it came off your lips and teeth so well, and so easily. But there are many people who would be, like, what is she saying about physicians? But
Right.
yeah, no,
Well,
you're right, 100%.
as you said about words before, words really do make a big difference in how you phrase them, which words you put together. So just by saying I'm in service
Yeah,
changes how that feels versus I'm in the service industry,
yeah, sure,
right? I
absolutely.
mean, just those small changes. One
Yes.
I've noticed for me as I get more in tune with my emotions and myself, I really carefully pick words I choose and how I
I
put
love
them together. I didn't do that. I was a hot-headed, rebellious, in my early years. So I never thought about what I said. And now I'm so cautious about the
it.
words I use, how I put them together, the tone I say them in. All of it matters.
Right.
Really
Yeah,
does.
right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I do that too. I think about it, and it sounds like we're growing up, Dr. Kalpana,
Oh my God. I guess so. I mean, we met when we were 20 something. And
exactly.
then here we are as like full grown adults with
Me, I had to
re-
cut the white off of the sides of my hair so I can get on TV with you here.
oh, trust me, there's plenty of that stuff going on for me. I just cover it.
But yeah, I was 24 and you were probably 22 at the time, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. 22 or 23. Yeah. I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember. I think 22. Yes. So it's
yeah,
just funny. We're children and we're really just dealing with these difficult circumstances. I didn't
yeah.
really even realize it. I remember I wrote about this. I think I wrote about this in my book. I'm sure I did. But I remember one night after general surgery, I was in that year of general surgery and I never was home. I mean, I'd be gone for 150 hours during the week and I was married. So I didn't really see my husband a whole lot. And I remember one night I came home and I lived in Philadelphia. I didn't even know how to process what even was going on internally, emotion wise. I went out to the balcony and it was snowing. I laid on the ground in the balcony in fetal position and just sobbed. I didn't even know what to do, but clearly I needed grounding. So I went to the ground and just sobbed and luckily my husband wasn't home. I didn't want to explain to him what was going on because I didn't have the words to really explain it. But it was a
Right.
flurry of emotions, storms of emotions going on inside. I'd seen so many god awful things during that week and I didn't have time to process it. So that was
Mm,
my answer. And then you just get numb. And I think
mm,
there needs to be something in our programs. I think they're doing better at it now, but I think there needs to be more around that because
a
you,
lot.
a lot more around that. And
Mm,
I talked to a resident the other day who reached out to me for coaching, and she said, her exact words were, "I don't know if I can make it through, but I have to."
Oh, man.
Broke my heart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the other thing that you said earlier is that patients don't feel that doctors care. I think if a lot more of us knew that, then it would help us to make some adjustments, you see. So I feel like that's part of the primary goal of communicating. If we feel like our only goal is to come and write for Plavix or, Mucormyst or something like that, that's not it. The first goal is to show that we're here because we care,
Mhm.
and then um, and then if we get that across, maybe somebody will take our medicine that we're recommending.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it right there, just that showing you care, it creates that trust, creates that bond.
Yeah.
And, if you don't have that bond, I mean, there's no point in going further. That was the thing that I enjoyed the most is creating that bond with the patients, seeing them, knowing that X, Y, and Z happened in their family. Sometimes I'd see patients I hadn't seen in years and I'd say, "Oh, didn't your daughter get married, when I last saw you?" And they go, "How do you remember that with all the patients you have?" I said, "I don't know. I just remember these things."
Wow.
And I
Wow.
love that. It was really enjoyable.
I had a couple of those moments too, like the one that you went and were on the fetal position on your balcony. I mean, that's amazing. I had one of those in Fort Lauderdale. Yes. It was at Broward. I shouldn't even maybe say the name, but it doesn't matter. It's happening in every hospital everywhere. But it just so happened that it was the third year. It was on cardiology service, and we were rounding. I was with the attending, and we were just getting ready to leave the room, and the patient said, "I feel strange," and she was holding on to the attending's hand. And he said, "You'll be fine." She says, "I don't know. I'll be strange." And then she says, "I don't know. I don't feel right." And then he kept trying to reassure her. And then, he like sort of peeled his hand out of hers. And then we went around the corner and then she coded. you know.
Wow. And they know. See, they know when they're not feeling right. And so it's interesting how we just feel like we're the doctors in those situations and maybe we don't have signs of it.
You see that? I mean, so that's been with me for ever since then. I mean, I still don't know how to process that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
these things are tough. I mean, I have for example, like when my I always keep my phone on silent now.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you have this, but I literally, when my phone goes off, and it's been years since I've taken an ER call, when my phone goes off, my heart starts racing. So I can't
Oh,
listen to it. I can't listen to it because too many times has that beeper has my text has gone off and there's an emergent airway issue. I remember rushing to the hospital, doing an emergency tracheotomy, you know, almost losing people, bleeding, whatever the case is. I mean, it was so many things that still to this day reminds me of.
yeah.
Keep my
Yeah.
phone on silent, and
I
I check
believe it.
it.
I believe it. And see, a lot of people that are watching your show and seeing what you do every day would not think for a minute that you were doing all that, saving people's airways and keeping people alive and keeping people breathing. It's just a lot that you've been through to get to where you are right now. So
Well, we
I
all have.
appreciate
I mean, all of us physicians have. You have as well, and I think that's we should really all appreciate all of the people that come together in society to do the work that they do for the benefit of others. Not just
Yeah.
us, but everybody, every single human being does something that helps our lives be better. And I think a lot of times we forget that. So I
Right.
try to be appreciative about every single, and that's one of the big things that I've changed drastically in my life that has served me so beautifully, just to be so grateful and so appreciative about everyone and everything and what they're there to do. Changed my
Yes.
perspective drastically in life.
Yes. Thinking about meeting you, and I've heard you say this in a couple different ways just today. You were talking about appreciating a lot of different perspectives, people that don't necessarily agree with you, you don't agree with, but you like hearing their ideas. And the way you said it just a moment ago, there's just a lot of people that are adding value in a lot of different ways. I really have been doing the same thing and considering the variety a blessing, you know.
Hmm.
Um, the contrast, things I like more, things that, I could have less of. It's still there. It's still an option. There's still choices, but it's a blessing to have them in our life. That's kind of an adjustment I've been making lately, also.
Well, I think that's great. See, this is why we've reconnected because our journeys went like this and then they came back together and now I feel like they're very much in sync, which I love. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's in your future, Dr. Sean? What do you see yourself doing over the next 5 to 10 years that would make your life feel even more blissful? Because I sense that you're a person who really enjoys what you do. But what would take it to the next level?
Next level is doing what I do, but a broader platform. And so maybe it means I'm not treating patients with stroke as often as I am right now. Maybe fewer of those, but more talking to people about some of the ideas that we have been talking about, helping people to realize their choice. Maybe it's public speaking, maybe it's platforms like what we're doing right now. So this is perfect, and I feel honored to be here with you doing this. Books that I've written and promoting these ideas and helping people the way I was helped, quite frankly. You see, so that's what happened that night when I got stuck in that blizzard. I said, one day I'm going to do this. And so that day I feel is coming closer and closer and closer. So next 5 to 10 years, I'm doing more of that. And I do have a dream that is a little more it's sort of broad. And that is so Kalpana likes to travel a lot.
Your
And
compliment,
so
and me too, but
oh
we
right.
differentiate who you're talking about.
Exactly. And of course, I know. So now one of the first things I learned about her was what kalpana means,
Mhm.
uh, in Hindi. So I was like, oh my God, that's great. That's the kind of woman I need, somebody with that kind of name. And she's going to be like, let's go. And but I have this idea that we're going to be spreading ideas like this in places like India and Africa and places of need around the world that where people don't necessarily know that they have a choice.
I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. I also
Thank you.
see something similar in my future in spreading these ideas into other parts of the world. I don't know what that exactly looks like yet, but it's wonderful. And you guys really have enjoyed some beautiful trips, and I live vicariously through you, which has been fun because I haven't been doing as much traveling lately. I need to get back into it, but have halted for a little while. I mean, I'm still traveling, just not as much as I used to. Just so many changes in my life and moves and whatnot. But I have really just, I love your perspective on life and, and with the patients you treat and how you see medicine and all the transitions that you've been through. Are there any like final words of wisdom that you want to share with our audience?
Final words of wisdom. I would say they are that we always have choice. We usually think we just have two choices. Sometimes we talk about a fork in the road and we see that fork like this, but that fork is like, so many different options. Many times we can't see them, and that's what stresses us out. And when we get stressed out, that is just the moment when it's really an opportunity to grow. That stress itself is like growing pains. And a lot of times, what keeps us from growing, we have maybe some habits here and there. Sometimes we might blame people, sometimes we might complain, sometimes healthy, like not healthy comparison or not healthy competition, making excuses. There are a lot of different habits of thought, habits of speech, habits of activity, things that we do that keep us from growing. But if we can recognize it as an opportunity to discover more choices that we have, well, then we will find them. Um, we can exercise our choices. You see, I think we find our choices by exercising them and really enjoying the blessing of a variety. Sometimes we get stuck on things that we don't like, but I kind of see life like going to get ice cream, you know. Um, let's go get some ice cream. There's a lot of different options there. There's some things under there that they don't really please me. There's no reason for me to keep looking at black licorice ice cream and saying, "Oh, I hate that. I hate that. It makes me sick." Oh, why would anybody who would want that? Just focus on what we want. There's a lot more of it, and appreciate what's there. It's still an option. You never know what you're going to have a taste for later on. So, I think just really appreciate that we have a bunch of options, but we usually just see two. So those would be my words of wisdom.
I love that. And I'm going to add a little to that. And because I too have also realized that there's more than just two options. I used to see life in that very concrete way. And because I love that poem, Robert Frost, I mean, they just probably where most of us get that idea that there's just two options. Thing I will add to that, I'm a big fan of Abraham Hicks. So whenever I'm presented with options, I go with the option that feels the best. So unlike how I was raised to just, with the shoulds and the way things have to be, I now go with what feels good because inevitably that has always led me in the right direction. Meaning, if I meet somebody and the interaction feels good, that's a great connection. If I'm doing something and I really enjoy it because it feels good, well, I want to do more of that. If I'm doing something I don't enjoy it, rather than saying I don't enjoy that, I just say that feels less good than this. And then all of a sudden, my life started to change for more positive creation because I stopped putting those negative spins on those things. And, really just listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks has really helped me with those choices and reframing things. Now everything is just about what I like less, and what I like a lot. So those are my gauges now. They've just shifted from the way I was before.
Step one,
Yes, identify what you like.
I love it.
Yes, I love it too. So I have to say that when we may have to just take all of this and put it together at some point and take this globally and do something. I have a feeling that somehow our paths were meant to connect because we're going to be doing stuff together. You and I said that when we first connected a couple of years ago, and we don't know what that looks like yet. But I have a feeling it's going to happen, and it'll reveal itself, when the time is right. Right?
It's fastly approaching.
Yes, I think it is. I think it is. I have to say that, I knew this was going to be an amazing interview. I know that you're not just a physician like me. You have so much depth. You think about things really consciously. You're aware. You formulate your thoughts very beautifully. So I knew that this was going to be a lovely interview. And I have to say, I feel it exceeded my expectations. So that's always a good place to be.
Oh, cool, cool. Well, we're definitely on some serious wavelength there because I start my day every day with kind of pre-paving it
Mhm,
with Abraham Hicks, about 15 minutes, 30 minutes sometimes. I share them with my family. So
mhm.
we are on a similar journey. So we're gonna help a lot of people. It'll be fun.
I think so. I think so. So, any of you out there watching, if you want to get a hold of Dr. Hubbard, want to know a little bit more about what he does, you can see his website down at the ticker down on the bottom, drhubbard.com, and you can see all about what he does and all the things that he's going to be up to because there's undoubtedly more to come, I'm sure. So,
Amen.
Sean,
That's
thank you
fantastic.
so much for being on Gloves Off today. And, I look forward to being on your show. I was starting to feel a little sad. Like, why wasn't I invited on this show?
Oh, I need you. I need you, and I appreciate you, and I love everything that you are doing. I'm very proud of you also for it.
Well,
There's a lot more to say about.
I feel the
Yeah,
same, and it's great to just, connect with, people that you knew from, young age and watch the evolution. So it's been an absolute pleasure. And, maybe in some time when you're doing something new, which I know will happen, we'll have to have you on the show again to talk about what's new in Dr. Sean's life.
here
Well,
for it.
you have a fabulous rest of the evening and, have a wonderful rest of the evening because it's late for you. You're on the East Coast and I'm sure we'll talk soon. Have a great evening.
You too, Dr. Kaufman. Take care.
Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. He is just a really wonderful human being, and I'm sure that came across in the interview. So reach out if you want to get in touch with him, see what he's up to. And also, next week, I'm going to actually be interviewing Ava Pickle. She is a certified sexologist, so you're probably wondering what that's all about. It's probably not it's not what you're thinking that it is. So what she likes to talk about is the sacred union between a man and a woman. And I love it because these are incorporating some Buddhism and a lot of the different things that she's learned in India. So it'll be a very insightful conversation. So I'm excited for you guys to tune in next week. And that's going to be our show for April 5th on Gloves Off. And it was a pleasure having you. And we'll see you next week.